In Seoul, a group of men gathered inside a karaoke bar. They sang, danced, and drank, trying to let go of the day's stress. One man among them was not part of the group. He had slipped in with a disguise, his real purpose hidden. He aimed to reach a private room that served as a communication hub for Caddis, a secret intelligence organization. David Jung waited patiently for the right moment. He tapped into the live exchange between Caddis and one of their assassins positioned at the Conrad Hotel. The mission was clear: kill Michael Karpov, the Russian ambassador to South Korea. The task was given to Rebecca. A deadly game was set in motion. This is Butterfly. Rebecca disguised herself as a pregnant woman. Moving carefully, she drew close without raising suspicion. She pretended to feel faint near one of Karpov's guards. Concerned, the guard offered her a seat. As he looked away, she slipped a replica phone laced with poison into place. Minutes later, when Karpov used the phone, his body seized. Foam spilled from his mouth as he collapsed. Rebecca walked calmly to the elevator. One of Karpov's guards stepped inside with her, unaware of who she was. Yet the head of security had already noticed her strange movements and alerted his men to stop her. When they tried, Rebecca fought back. The elevator became a close-quarters battlefield, and she killed the guard before stepping out with her weapon ready. She gunned down more of Karpov's men waiting on the 9th floor. Pinned in the conference hall, she looked for an escape. She shattered a window to trick the guards into thinking she had gone outside. While they scrambled, she slipped into the emergency stairwell. She changed clothes quickly, shedding her disguise and blending in as another person. Back at the karaoke bar, David broke into the operator's room, fought off resistance, and seized control of the system. From there he traced Rebecca's extraction route. The extraction team received the signal and moved to the pickup zone, while Rebecca, changing back into her original outfit, headed there as well. At the same time, David identified the pickup location and moved quickly through the alleys of Seoul. When the extraction vehicle struck a baby stroller, it turned out to be a decoy with only a doll inside. David seized the moment, pulled the men from the car, and took them down. When Rebecca arrived at the pickup point, she approached the car that was waiting for her. Just as she was about to step inside, she noticed something unusual about the right headlight. Her instincts told her something was wrong. She turned away and ran. Inside the vehicle, David was already waiting, and he immediately gave chase. Rebecca sprinted along the sidewalk. David abandoned the car and pursued her on foot, but 2 police officers appeared nearby, forcing him to pull back. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving Rebecca behind. Meanwhile, inside a hidden Caddis facility, their leader Juno interrogated a member accused of betrayal. The man Many admitted he had passed information to the FBI, claiming he acted out of loyalty to the country. He accused Juno of siding with its enemies. She ignored his reasoning. For her, war was profit. She demanded to know who had received the information. If he refused, she warned his family would pay the price. Under pressure, Many gave up a name. He revealed the contact was in a fishing village in Malta. Juno wasted no time. She ordered a team to head there and instructed her men to execute Many immediately. Afterward, Juno received a report from her son, Oliver. He informed her that the Seoul mission had been compromised. The target, Karpov, was dead, but Rebecca had gone missing, and the extraction team was eliminated. The news unsettled Juno. Rebecca was Caddis's most valuable assassin, the one asset she could not afford to lose. She ordered Oliver to uncover who was behind the sabotage. Whoever it was, they clearly understood Caddis operations in detail. Back in Seoul, David stopped at a street market to buy supplies. He cleaned away evidence from the Caddis vehicle, abandoned it in a basement parking lot, and headed toward the subway. On the way, he reconsidered. He could not return home yet. He still had unfinished business. He called Yunju and told her he had finally found Rebecca. Yet Rebecca showed no sign of recognizing him. David reminded himself of the promise he had made to his wife, that he would return as soon as he confirmed their daughter's identity. But after 9 years of searching, and now seeing Rebecca as an adult, he could not walk away again. David also knew that if he tried to take her openly, Caddis would never stop hunting them. To protect his family, he told his wife to pack and move to a safe house, assuring her he would join them within 48 hours. While David made preparations to protect his family, Rebecca, who was in Taiwan, contacted Juno, who was on her way to Seoul, to ask what was happening. Juno explained that the Seoul operation had been sabotaged. The target was eliminated, but the team had been compromised, and the person responsible was still unknown. Caddis had obtained CCTV footage of the suspect just before the incident. Yet the footage was useless, because the individual was skilled in counter-surveillance and had concealed their identity. Juno then asked Oliver whether Rebecca knew the true reason behind Karpoff's assassination. If she did, Juno feared she might have refused to carry out the mission. Oliver reassured her that Rebecca did not care about the motive. What mattered to her was the act of killing itself. At the same time, David returned to his stolen car. He wrote a set of coordinates on a piece of paper and left it inside. Then he smashed the window to trigger the alarm, making sure security would find it. Moments later, he took a taxi to Incheon to meet an old associate who now ran a small restaurant. Yong-shik was overjoyed to see David after so many years and asked why he had come. On the rooftop of the restaurant, David revealed his request. He needed a new passport immediately, because Caddis would soon be hunting him. Yong-shik was shocked. As far as he knew, David was the founder of Caddis, so why were they now after him? David avoided details but shared one truth. Caddis had taken the most important part of his life, his daughter. He intended to get her back. David had believed she was living a normal life, but instead she had been trained and turned into an assassin. That daughter was Rebecca. David told Yong-shik that he had no choice but to come out of hiding, even if it cost him his life. Yong-shik understood and promised to prepare passports for David and his family within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Rebecca searched the stolen car that David had abandoned. She found the paper with GPS coordinates. Later, she returned to her safe house with Atwood, trying to rest before resuming the hunt. She kept asking herself who this man was. He seemed uninterested in the mission or the other agents. His focus was only on her. David, meanwhile, was at a safe house in Anong. He prepared small traps, convinced that Rebecca and her team would soon arrive. By then, Juno and Oliver had reached Caddis's Seoul branch. Juno immediately contacted Rebecca, asking if she had found the man. Rebecca admitted she had not caught him yet, but she already knew where he was. Hearing this, Juno ordered reinforcements, certain the man would not be easy to defeat. Soon after, Rebecca and her team arrived at the house. They split up and searched every corner, unaware that David was waiting in the shadows. One of his bombs detonated, killing 2 Caddis operatives instantly. Rebecca and Atwood moved upstairs to investigate. They spotted David escaping toward the storage room. Atwood rushed in alone and came face to face with him. A brutal fight erupted. Atwood fired his gun but only struck the ceiling. David countered and knocked him unconscious. Moments later, Rebecca entered and found Atwood on the ground. Before she could react, the sound of footsteps echoed nearby. She followed quickly, chasing David into another building. There, she stumbled upon a photograph of her younger self standing with her father. David stepped out of the shadows. Rebecca froze in disbelief. Her father was alive. Her emotions collided, torn between relief and anger. Why had he returned only now, after being declared dead for 9 years? David knew she had endless questions, but this was not the time to answer them. For a brief moment he looked away. That hesitation gave Rebecca the chance to strike. She subdued him with swift precision. Shaken, she contacted Juno and demanded answers. She asked if Juno had known the man she was sent to hunt was her father. If this had been deliberate, it would be unforgivable. Juno was stunned. She insisted she had no idea and truly believed David had died 9 years earlier. She told Rebecca not to act further, reminding her she was in no condition to make decisions, and promised to send a team immediately. Behind the scenes, however, Juno secretly ordered Atwood to eliminate David, who was now in Rebecca's custody. Meanwhile, David regained consciousness. He stood up and immediately apologized to Rebecca, admitting he should have approached her differently from the start. He tried to speak with her, but Atwood burst into the room, weapon aimed at David. Before he could fire, Rebecca reacted first. She shot Atwood, killing him instantly. When she checked his device and saw Juno's order to eliminate her father, her emotions became even more conflicted. Seeing her distress, David urged her to leave with him. He promised to explain everything, including why he had vanished from her life when she was 14. On the way, they stopped at a small convenience store to pick up food for the road. Rebecca stayed cold toward her father, still struggling to accept that the man she thought had been dead for 9 years was standing beside her. To her, life with Juno had been simpler, even comforting, as Juno had treated her like a daughter. Still torn, Rebecca called Juno from the store's bathroom. She demanded to know why Juno had ordered Atwood to kill her father. Juno, not wanting to lose her best assassin, claimed she only did it to protect Rebecca. She warned that David's real goal was to take her away and ruin everything. Rebecca did not know what to believe. To test her feelings, she told Juno she would play along with her father's plan for now. David grew suspicious when Rebecca did not return from the bathroom. He entered and saw a window pried open. Panic set in as he thought she had fled. But Rebecca was only testing him. She waited in the parking lot, amused by his reaction. As they drove toward Busan, David tried to ease the tension, attempting small talk, but Rebecca kept her distance. Their journey took a dangerous turn when they reached a police checkpoint. Rebecca pulled out her gun, ready to provoke chaos. David stopped her and insisted on handling it calmly. He showed his license to the officers. The checkpoint was a trap set by Caddis. The officers aimed their weapons, forcing David and Rebecca out of the car. David struck one of the officers, while Rebecca opened fire. A shootout erupted. David seized a passing car, and together they escaped. Meanwhile, Juno struggled to believe David was alive. She had seen his broken body buried years ago. Il-hwa entered her office with troubling news. Commissioner General Huang of the Korean police had escalated David and Rebecca's wanted status after the attack on his officers. She also reported David's address, tied to a woman named Yoonju Kim. Yoonju was the daughter of a wealthy shipping magnate and had married David 7 years earlier, when he assumed the identity of Dae Ho-jung. Realizing the threat David posed, Juno ordered Oliver to find him and kill him. She knew that leaving him alive would endanger Caddis, even though David had once built the organization with her. While Oliver carried out her orders, events unfolded elsewhere. At the home of a Korean official, a security worker arrived to repair the CCTV system. Lim's wife let him inside, unaware of his true identity. The man was Gun, one of South Korea's most feared assassins, and his mission was to kill both Lim and his wife.
임철수 씨가
Not long after, Gun received a call from Juno. She offered him a lucrative contract to eliminate her former partner, David Jung. The name stunned Gun, since he had always believed David was dead. Taking down a legend among assassins would be no ordinary task, but Gun accepted. For him, the challenge itself was an honor. Meanwhile, David and Rebecca reached a well-known soju bar owned by one of David's old friends. The place was closed, but David knew where the spare key was kept. He let them inside and poured a drink from the recipe he had once created with his friend. Rebecca tasted it and admitted it was exceptional, both in aroma and flavor. As they drank, Rebecca recalled a faint memory of a song from her childhood. Before she could piece it together, she began to lose consciousness. David had mixed her drink with a strong alcohol that was powerful enough to knock her out. Once she was asleep, he searched her belongings, hoping to find Juno's phone number. At the same time, Senator Dawson visited Juno at the Caddis office. Curious about her new base in Seoul, he congratulated her on her progress, but his real purpose was to discuss Caddis's connection to the late Michael Karpov. He invited her to a nearby restaurant to talk in private. Dawson explained that reports indicated a long partnership between Caddis and Karpov. He suspected that Karpov had kept dangerous secrets that may have led to his assassination. Dawson pressed Juno for information, telling her that even the smallest detail could be of value to him. Rebecca later woke from her blackout and was shocked to see her father searching through her things. David admitted he wanted to be certain she was not hiding anything. Then he began explaining why he had disappeared 14 years earlier. He said he left to protect her, fearing she would become a target of the enemies who wanted him dead. Furious at such a reason, Rebecca tried to strike him. David held her tightly, calming her, and began to tell his story. He spoke of a mission on Holo Island in the Philippines, where he led a team to hunt down Hugo Maldonado and his gang. He underestimated how dangerous they were. His team managed to infiltrate their information center, only to discover that the enemy had detailed files on each of them. Realizing the raid had been a trap, David attempted to withdraw, but they were ambushed before they could escape. His entire team was slaughtered, leaving him as the sole survivor. From that moment, he knew the hunters would never stop until he was also dead. David admitted that his decision to vanish had left Rebecca to endure pain he could never repay. Yet now, seeing her alive in front of him, he believed his sacrifice had carried some meaning. Before he could process that moment any further, a call came from Yoonju. She told him she was being followed by Caddis operatives and could not move. David urged her to stay hidden and promised he would head to Dongdaegu Station immediately. Rebecca, seeing that her father needed help, offered to go with him. David refused, asking her to stay behind. He did not want her further entangled with Caddis. Meanwhile, Gun was watching his favorite film when Juno called. She informed him that David was on his way to Dongdaegu Station to rescue his wife. At Caddis headquarters, the focus was on the station's CCTV. Everyone waited for David to appear. Oliver asked his mother why she was so determined to hunt him down, since in his view David no longer posed a threat. Juno's anger flared. For her, this was not only about Caddis, but about securing the future she had built. Oliver sensed that his mother cared more about Rebecca's future than about him, her own son. When David arrived at the station, he concealed his face from the cameras and moved carefully. He began eliminating Caddis operatives one by one, taking their comms to tap into the audio feed. Caddis soon realized he was there as their agent stopped checking in. David then spoke directly to Juno through the comms. He reminded her of the time they once dreamed of becoming global players together. But now, with her hunting him, he swore that if she harmed his family, he would destroy everyone she cared about. He warned her that she already knew what he was capable of. Juno was unsettled by his words, but refused to show weakness. She told him she no longer feared him, because in 9 years she had built an empire greater than anything they once shared, an empire with power far beyond his reach. As David spoke, one of Caddis's assassins crept up behind him. Sofong raised his knife to strike, but Rebecca suddenly appeared and slashed his Achilles tendon. David was furious to see her there. Yet when it became clear she would not leave, he accepted her presence and began coordinating with her. Together, they moved through the station, splitting up inside the bathrooms and each taking down 2 operatives. Father and daughter fought with precision, eliminating every pursuer. With the path cleared, David rushed toward the spot where Yunju was hiding. On the stairs, Gun ambushed him, forcing a brutal fight. Rebecca leapt from above and joined the struggle, helping her father hold him off. Seizing the chance, Rebecca pulled her injured father onto a train where Yunju and Minhee were waiting. She tried to stop the bleeding while they quickly joined in to help. Rebecca was stunned to learn that her father had another daughter from his marriage. Later, while tending to his wounds in the train bathroom, David called Yong-shik to ask if his request was ready. He told him it needed to be delivered by tomorrow, as the danger to his family was growing by the hour. Rebecca's disappointment was obvious. She had never imagined her father would have another daughter. She pressed Yunju with questions, demanding to know what had happened 9 years ago when David disappeared. Yunju explained that she had no connection to David's past with Rebecca. She had only met him 8 years ago while he was in hiding. At that time, David wanted her help to create a new identity so his past would no longer catch up with him. Everything happened quickly, and Minhee was born a year after their marriage. Rebecca ignored the explanation and walked away. She wanted the truth directly from her father. David apologized for keeping her in the dark, saying the situation had never given him the chance to explain. Still, one thing was clear. He wanted her to live with him again. He told her he had prepared everything for them to move abroad, including a new passport. All that remained was to escape Caddis and start a new life together. Meanwhile, Juno called Gun and demanded to know why David had escaped. Gun replied that if Rebecca had not interfered, his mission would have been complete. He then asked for the train's direction so he could intercept them at the next stop. Soon after, Juno received more bad news. Commissioner Huang cut off all communication with Caddis after receiving hundreds of calls from frightened passengers at Dongdaegu Station. Worse, he had discovered that Rebecca was connected to Caddis. He told Juno not to contact him again until she had resolved her organization's internal problems. Knowing that agents would be waiting at the next station, David pulled the emergency lever, forcing the train to stop before arrival. Juno, realizing what he had done, immediately ordered her teams to head to the location of the halted train. David, Yunju, and the 2 girls made their way to a nearby truck depot. They asked one of the drivers for a ride, claiming their car had broken down. The driver refused at first, but Yunju convinced him by saying it was her daughter's birthday and they needed to celebrate. Reluctantly, the driver agreed. Moments later, Gun and several Caddis agents reached the depot. While searching, Gun spotted a bloodstain on the back of a truck and tried to stop it. But the stain was only a decoy placed earlier by David. When Gun opened the vehicle, it was empty. The rail truck carrying David and his family had already driven off. By the next day, David, Yunju, Rebecca, and Minhee had arrived in Busan and settled into one of David's safe houses. There, Yunju spoke privately with her husband about Rebecca. She said she would be glad if Rebecca became part of their family, but for that to happen, they needed to truly live as one. David understood her point, but he reminded her that they first needed to survive their current crisis before they could be a united family. Elsewhere, Dawson met with Juno and handed her a photo of Oliver with a man named Jae-hoon Lee, taken shortly before Jae-hun was killed in a nightclub. Dawson expressed concern for Oliver's future. Jae-hun had been a valuable CIA asset, and Dawson knew Michael Karpov had also played a major role for Caddis. Since Oliver had been the operative ordered to get close to Karpov, Dawson pressed Juno to let him question Oliver directly. He suggested cooperation would be the best way to clear any doubts. Later, Juno confronted Oliver. She asked about his activities after meeting Jae-hun, since the CIA had evidence placing him with Jae-hun on the night of his death. She warned him to be careful, because if he made a mistake, she would pay the price. Oliver's patience finally broke. He accused his mother of always underestimating him compared to Rebecca. He demanded her trust, asking her to let him search for Rebecca so he could prove himself once and for all. At the safe house, Rebecca was seen teaching Min-hee how to handle a firearm. When Yoonju witnessed this, she grew furious, questioning why her young daughter was being exposed to weapons. Their heated argument drew David's attention. He stepped in, urging them to keep the peace, at least until they could escape. He admitted the situation was difficult, but pleaded for their cooperation. Then he called Min-hee back into the house. Watching this, Rebecca suddenly remembered how her father once played a tossing game with her. She asked if he still remembered its name. Meanwhile, Gun arrived at Yong-shik's restaurant to track him down. He ordered his men to call Yong-shik out of his room. Hearing familiar voices, Yong-shik stepped out unsuspectingly. Gun immediately killed his men, leading to a violent fight between him and Yong-shik. Both fought skillfully, but Gun gained the upper hand, stabbing Yong-shik repeatedly with a dagger. Gun demanded David's location. Loyal to his old friend, Yong-shik refused to betray him. He died without revealing anything. Afterward, Gun searched the office and noticed notes on Yong-shik's computer monitor. From these, he concluded David was in Busan. Gun informed Juno of his findings, explaining that David was expected to meet an intermediary that night to collect passports. Juno immediately sent Oliver to assist Gun. She ordered him to keep Rebecca safe if possible, but if Rebecca resisted, Gun had permission to kill her. Back at home, David sensed the tension in the air and tried to ease it by suggesting they bake Min-hee's birthday cake together. Rebecca refused at first, but when Min-hee asked her directly, she reluctantly agreed. That small moment softened both Rebecca and Yoonju. The peace did not last. When David mentioned the name of a childhood game he once played with Rebecca, she broke down in tears. She stormed out of the house, furious at him. Rebecca accused her father of being selfish, saying he abandoned her under the excuse of protecting her when, in truth, he only wanted to cut ties with his past. David told her she was wrong. He explained that her situation was nothing like Min-hee's, because their circumstances were completely different. Not wanting the argument to drag on, he told her he needed to leave briefly to collect the passports so they could escape as soon as possible. At Dawson's office, Juno handed over Rebecca's personal file. She claimed Rebecca had killed Karpov alone, without Caddis's involvement. She also said Rebecca had defected from the organization and that David Jung was the mastermind behind it all. Dawson did not fully believe her, but with only the file as evidence, he chose to play along for now. Meanwhile, David arrived at Jigalki Market to meet Yong-shik. When his calls went unanswered, and after spotting several Caddis operatives nearby, he realized something was wrong. He tried to escape, but Gun had been watching from above and followed his movements. Once home, David ordered his family to prepare to leave immediately. Their intermediary had been compromised, and with no passports, their only option was Guj Island. As he gathered supplies, Gun and Oliver arrived to storm the hideout. David and his family reached a boat headed for Guj, but Caddis operatives were already waiting at the dock. David and Rebecca stepped out to fight, while Yoonju and Min-hee stayed on the boat under his orders. Rebecca opened fire to hold off the attackers while David set a trap. His improvised bomb detonated, wiping out most of their pursuers and leaving only 3 in the fight. Gun sent one man after Rebecca while he confronted David directly. The duel was brutal. David became tangled in the ship's hook net, restricting his movements. Gun closed in with a knife, ready to finish him. But David freed himself just enough to reach a nearby firearm. With quick reflexes, he shot Gun multiple times, sending him crashing into the sea. David rushed back to the boat, where a Caddis agent had already boarded and threatened his family. Yoonju managed to fight back, killing the intruder before he could harm them. With his family safe, David returned to help Rebecca capture Oliver, who was trying to escape. Overcome with rage, David nearly executed him as retribution for Juno's order to kill his family. Terrified, Oliver revealed a secret. He confessed that the mission in the Philippines 9 years earlier had been a setup to eliminate David. Worse, his own mother had given Maldonado all of David's personal data, including information about Rebecca when she was just 14. When David learned this, he immediately contacted Juno and demanded to know if she had betrayed him in the Philippines. He told her that her son had already revealed the truth, and to repay her for what she had done, he warned that he would now take something precious from her. A flashback revealed what had happened 9 years earlier. On Holo Island, David led his team in an operation against Maldonado. Realizing they were in danger, he pulled his men back from the base and called Juno. He told her to pick up Rebecca from her aunt's house and take her to a safe location, since Maldonado had already marked his family. Before he could finish the call, his team's vehicle struck a landmine planted on the road. Maldonado's men ambushed them from all directions. A fierce firefight followed. In the end, David was the only survivor. When he considered calling Juno to report what had happened, he changed his mind. Believing Rebecca would be safer if the world thought he was dead, he decided to fake his death. Back in the present, Juno and her operatives searched the East Sea for the bodies of Caddis agents killed the night before. They also wanted to confirm whether David had killed her son. As they checked each body, Gunn suddenly regained consciousness and lashed out at a nearby agent. Juno demanded to know from Gunn where her son was, reminding him that she had ordered Oliver's protection. Furious that Oliver's fate was still unclear, she commanded her agents to stay on high alert and monitor every CCTV feed in Korea. Hollis reported that the surveillance was already in place, but when he tried to access records related to David's wife's family, their system was blocked. Meanwhile, David and his family found refuge at a property owned by Yunju's father, Do-tae Kim, a wealthy businessman involved in shipping and trade. In the criminal underworld, however, he was far from an ordinary figure. During a meal prepared by Yunju's mother, David asked Tae Kim for help in securing new visas for himself, Yunju, Rebecca, and Min-hee, so they could move to Japan within 2 days. Tae Kim grew angry, demanding to know why he should involve his daughter and grandchildren in David's problems. His wife tried to calm the situation, urging them to finish eating before continuing the discussion. Elsewhere, Juno, realizing Oliver was still alive, sent a voice message to David. She pleaded with him not to harm her son and offered a deal. She promised to stop hunting his family if he released Oliver. David listened carefully to her words. Rebecca, who overheard, asked her father what he planned to do next. She admitted that she had always trusted Juno, but that trust was broken after Juno sent assassins to kill her. The only thing Juno had never shared with her was the truth about Karpov. Rebecca suggested that this secrecy could be their advantage, and that turning Oliver into an ally might be the key. At the same time, Dawson, aware that Juno was playing her own game, pressed on with his investigation into Caddis's role in Karpov's murder. Juno had handed him data pointing to the supposed killer, but Dawson knew her too well. He had trained her as a spy and understood her ambition. He realized she was using Caddis for her own gain, even if it meant betraying her country. Letting her go unchecked was not an option. At the same time, David and Rebecca went to the warehouse where Oliver was being held. David demanded to know why Caddis wanted Michael Karpov dead. Oliver refused to answer, instead taunting Rebecca. She nearly lost control, but David stopped her and told her to wait outside. David then turned the interrogation toward Oliver's relationship with his mother. He explained that Rebecca had told him how Juno dismissed Oliver as a burden to the business. David claimed he had tried to negotiate for Oliver's safety, but Juno said she did not care about her son's fate. Using an edited recording, David planted seeds of doubt, pushing Oliver to question where his mother's loyalty truly lay. Deep down, Oliver knew Juno had always prioritized the organization and Rebecca over him. As Oliver began to falter, David pressed further. Oliver admitted the CIA had once assigned someone to monitor him, a man named Jae-hun. At first, he ignored him, but over time they became friends. Everything changed when Oliver caught Jae-hun attempting to steal his laptop, which held sensitive Caddis data. Oliver confessed that he had no real combat training. But after years of watching Caddis operatives kill by targeting the throat, he mimicked the move. When he struck Jae-hun, the sight of blood sent him into shock. Later, Oliver revealed something more. He told Rebecca that Caddis had been selling intelligence to Russia about their targets. The United States had already launched an investigation, led by Senator Dawson. If Dawson obtained proof, Juno's career would collapse. Armed with this knowledge, David and Rebecca realized their next step was clear. They had to return to Seoul, meet Dawson, and bring down Juno and Caddis once and for all. Meanwhile, Hollis visited Juno, who was still shaken about Oliver's disappearance. He reminded her that Oliver was intelligent but weak under pressure. Trying to calm her, Hollis shared good news. Dawson's head of security was now working for Caddis. He explained that her loyalty had been secured through blackmail. They possessed video and photos of Vicky using drugs with underage girls. With her influence, Vicky would feed Dawson's intelligence straight to Caddis. Any information related to Caddis would reach Juno before it could be used against her. Before leaving for his mission, David spoke to Yunju. He told her he had finally found a way to defeat Juno, and that nothing could be allowed to happen to her or their daughter. If this nightmare was to end, Juno had to be stopped. After placing Oliver in the trunk of the car, David said goodbye to Rebecca, asking her to stay with her grandparents for now. Before he left, Yunju's mother pulled him aside. With tears in her eyes, she begged him not to die, saying she could not bear to see her daughter's heart broken if the man she loved was lost. When David reached Seoul, he and Rebecca put their plan into motion. Their first step was to sabotage Dawson's assistance device by cloning its data. This would give them access to Dawson's schedule and a chance to approach Commissioner Huang without alerting his security team. Rebecca created the opening by deliberately bumping into one of Huang's men, causing his phone to drop. As the man picked it up, David pressed his own phone against it and copied the data. With the information secured, they reviewed Huang's schedule for the day. They knew time was short and resolved to act quickly. Meanwhile, Juno sat in her office, deep in thought, when Hollis entered with an update. 2 sworn witnesses had reported seeing a man matching David's description in Incheon. Dawson was scheduled to meet that evening with a lawyer representing Jae-hoon Lee's family. Hollis assured Juno there was no cause for concern, since Vicky would attend the meeting and report everything back to them. Later, David and Rebecca arrived at Anyang Central Market. They surveyed the crowded area, planning how David could approach Dawson without alerting his bodyguards. Soon Dawson appeared, only to receive a call from David, who instructed him to meet face-to-face if he truly wanted to take down Juno. David told him to step into a nearby noodle shop, promising he only needed 60 seconds of his time. He assured Dawson not to worry about his bodyguards, as he would create a distraction in the market. Before heading into the meeting, David activated Oliver's phone so it would be detected by Caddis servers, ensuring their attention shifted away. While David moved to meet Dawson, Rebecca distracted Jae-hoon's lawyer to keep the plan running smoothly. Inside the shop, David told Dawson that Juno was behind the death of Jae-hoon Lee and others. He claimed to have proof but demanded immunity for both himself and his daughter in exchange. Dawson initially refused, agreeing only to protect David. He reminded him that Rebecca had personally killed Karpov, his only link between Caddis and Russian intelligence. But as David pressed him, Dawson relented, on the condition that the evidence was strong enough to destroy Juno completely. After the meeting, David released Oliver. Confused, Oliver asked why he was being let go so easily. David replied that he still saw Oliver as the same boy he once knew, someone he could not bring himself to harm. He warned Oliver to be cautious, because everything he said would eventually reach Juno, and she was not known for forgiveness. When Oliver returned to his mother, Juno's relief was tempered by suspicion. It was unusual for David to release her son without demanding anything in return. Her doubts grew when Vicky reported that their security team had lost track of the senator for more than a minute, and during that time Dawson had been only a meter away from Oliver's phone. Hollis added his own report, fueling her unease. Even so, Juno forced herself to set aside her doubts, too overwhelmed by the joy of having her son back in her arms. The next day, David and Rebecca watched from a rooftop overlooking Oliver's residence, where he was spending time with his mother. Though Juno tried to mask her unease, the memory of Oliver's unexplained disappearance continued to weigh on her. Juno questioned Oliver about his captivity, pressing him on whether he had revealed anything personal to David. Oliver tried to hide the truth, but she could see through him. As both a mother and a trained spy, she knew he was lying. She told him she would not force the truth out of him, but reminded him that she would love him regardless, even if he hurt her. Soon after, Juno and Oliver left for the office. From a distance, David and Rebecca saw their chance. Their plan was to dismantle Juno's control by targeting those closest to her. David broke into Oliver's apartment and planted a fake surveillance device inside the wooden wall, designed to make Oliver believe his mother did not trust him. At the office, Oliver expected to resume work as usual. Instead, Juno had arranged a private meeting with Hollis. She instructed him to file a post-captivity report about Oliver's abduction by David. Oliver was furious that his mother still doubted him, but he had no choice. Hollis questioned him about what he had told David, how he was released, and whether he had met Senator Dawson. The questions echoed those Juno had already asked, which only deepened Oliver's anger. What stung most was his mother's order that Hollis send him home immediately afterward. Frustrated, Oliver returned to his apartment. He tried to calm himself with a glass of water, but when he noticed the fake surveillance camera planted by David, his mother's distrust became undeniable. For the first time, he began to believe what David had told him. Around this time, David met Dawson at a hot spring. He asked Dawson to issue an internal confidential memo declaring that a high-level witness had come forward against Juno in the Karpov investigation. David insisted Dawson circulate the memo among his closest associates, warning that Caddis had planted spies in his circle. Dawson was skeptical, but knowing his daughter had once worked under Juno and understood her methods, he agreed. The memo was issued and circulated. Curious, Vicky accessed it and later informed Juno in secret, telling her that Dawson now had a witness against her and Caddis. The news unsettled Juno. She tried not to suspect her son, but his mysterious return weighed heavily on her mind. She ordered Hollis to monitor Oliver around the clock, wherever he went and whoever he was with. David's plan was beginning to take effect, and Dawson now believed he had real evidence. Later, Dawson called David, admitting he had been right about a spy. He asked when David would deliver the proof. David told him it would not be simple evidence but a witness powerful enough to expose all of Juno's crimes. He promised that the witness would come forward on their own. Rebecca, listening in, objected. She said Oliver was too much of a coward and would never step forward unless he believed his mother wanted him dead. Only then, she argued, would he turn against Juno completely. Even so, Juno remained uneasy. She asked Hollis for updates, and he assured her that Oliver's guards were watching him closely and would alert her if anything suspicious happened. Hollis also warned that David, still in Seoul, might be planning something to get closer to her son. Later, Juno contacted her ex-husband, asking how he used to comfort Oliver when he was under pressure. David told her their approaches were different but admitted Oliver's greatest fear had always been that his mother did not truly love him. Elsewhere, at the home of one of David's overseas associates, David and Rebecca prepared food together. While cooking, David asked if Juno would ever harm Oliver. Rebecca said she would not, explaining that Juno loved her son deeply but often acted as though she did not care. Not long after, David received a call from Yunju. She assured him that she and their daughter were safe. She said their daughter kept asking about him and wished he would return soon. David promised that everything would be resolved shortly and asked her to be patient a little longer. Later that evening, when Oliver returned from a restaurant, he was shocked to find his mother waiting in his apartment. Juno told him she intended to send him to London to work at the same bank as his father. She explained it was to protect him from the pressure within Caddis. Oliver reacted with anger. He had always wanted to stay by her side, and now he believed she only wanted to push him away as the problem child. Enraged, he stormed out, jumped into his car, and drove off in search of peace. His guards followed immediately, unaware that David was already inside the vehicle. Rebecca trailed from behind. Their goal was to make Oliver believe even more strongly that his mother wanted him gone. Convinced that the cars chasing him were his mother's bodyguards, Oliver tried to lose them. He eventually stopped to collect himself, but his electric car suddenly failed. It had been sabotaged earlier by David. A faint ticking sound from inside made Oliver panic. Realizing it was a timed bomb, he scrambled out just before the vehicle exploded. Shaken, Oliver called Dawson, begging him for protection. He promised to reveal everything about his mother's black operations, including the murders of Karpov and Jae-hun. All he asked was maximum protection for 24 hours, knowing Juno would come after him. Dawson quickly informed David. He said Oliver had confessed everything, and if the information was true, it would be enough to bring down Juno and Caddis. Oliver had also revealed details about Rebecca's involvement, but Dawson promised to erase it, honoring his deal with David. Relieved, David realized their fugitive status would soon be lifted. Rebecca felt the same, though she worried about what lay ahead. Despite her struggles, she admitted she had grown attached to her current life. David suggested they could start over in America, where she could attend college and finally leave behind the work that had turned her into Juno's weapon. But their hopes did not last long. Caddis operatives soon tracked down David's hideout, forcing him to order Rebecca to split off and head toward the riverside, where they had arranged a meeting point. Rebecca sprinted away while David stayed behind, engaging the pursuers in a fierce shootout. He gunned down several agents, then rushed across the street to reach her. But before he could get close, A speeding car slammed into Rebecca and abducted her. Desperate, David hijacked a motorcycle and chased after the vehicle carrying his daughter. The pursuit tore through the streets at high speed, but just as he closed in, another car swerved into his path. He crashed hard, losing his chance to save her. Rebecca was taken to Caddis headquarters, where Juno confronted her. Juno said she deserved execution for her betrayal, yet because she was as dear to her as Oliver, she was willing to forgive her. Rebecca laughed at the claim. She told Juno that everything she and her father had done was payback for what Juno had done to their family years earlier. Together, they had managed to turn Oliver against her. Rebecca reminded Juno that Oliver had never cared about Caddis, as he had only stayed to be near his mother. David understood his daughter's words. He knew Oliver was weak, unlike him, but said he would forgive him no matter what. Yet even though Oliver was his biological son, David admitted his love for Rebecca was stronger. Rebecca only laughed again, certain her father would come for her and that they would leave together. Unwilling to lose her most valuable asset, Juno pressed harder. She asked Rebecca which home she would choose, the one with her stepmother and half-sister, or the one with her father. David might share her blood, but she insisted she was Rebecca's true family. Juno reminded her that David had once betrayed her, faking his death and vanishing for 9 years. If he truly wanted to protect her, he could have taken her away long ago. So was his disappearance really for her sake, or had he been protecting his new daughter instead? Slowly, Rebecca seemed shaken by Juno's words. She embraced her and said she had missed her. Overjoyed, Juno urged Rebecca to leave with her for Incheon, where her private jet was ready to take them away before Dawson and the FBI could reach them. But before they could move, Hollis rushed in with urgent news. Dawson and the FBI were already on their way to Caddis headquarters. While chaos was closing in on Juno, David was at his father-in-law's residence, pleading for help. He needed men, equipment, and vehicles to rescue his daughter. He knew Do Tae Kim might prefer him dead, but he refused to leave without support. Seeing David beg, and watching his wife and daughter plead as well, Tae Kim finally agreed. His only condition was that David repay the debt once everything was over. David entered the armory, selecting weapons and gear for the mission. He also met the men who would accompany him in the rescue. Before leaving, Tae Kim warned him not to die, reminding him that his daughter would be devastated if he did. David promised to survive, if only to see Rebecca again. Their target was Juno's convoy headed for her private jet in Incheon. Funnel them into his trap. At the same time, Dawson and the FBI stormed Caddis headquarters, seizing hard drives, phones, and documents. Out on the road, Juno's convoy advanced into routes that David had already mapped. The chaos David created forced the convoy to reroute, but every alternate path had been marked in advance. Each road led them closer to his ambush. David rammed his vehicle into one of theirs, killing 3 inside.
¿Qué pasa, Sharon?
¡Sácanos de aquí!
He opened fire on more operatives and hurled a grenade, obliterating another car in a fiery explosion. Gunn stepped out from his vehicle, determined to face David directly. He entered a nearby building, where 2 men tried to kill him, but David's gunfire distracted them long enough for Gunn to strike them down. David moved forward, pistol raised, hunting for Gunn. When he finally confronted him, his weapon jammed, forcing them into brutal hand-to-hand combat. While David battled Gunn, Rebecca struggled inside Juno's car against her and the operatives. The fight between David and Gunn grew vicious, but David eventually managed to stab and kill him. Wounded but alive, David rushed to Rebecca. He pointed his pistol at Juno, ready to end her life for tearing him away from his daughter for so many years. He could not forgive what she had done to his family. But before he could pull the trigger, Rebecca begged him to stop. Despite everything, she still saw Juno as someone who had mattered in her life. Rebecca admitted Juno might come after her again, but she no longer cared because she knew her father would always protect her. Later, on their way back to Tae Kim's house, David asked Rebecca what Juno had said to her. Rebecca gave no answer. She simply thanked her father for saving her. At the same time, Juno and Hollis were aboard a private jet bound for Tangier. During the flight, they watched a news broadcast about Dawson, who had successfully exposed the murders committed by Caddis. Juno was furious to see everything she had built collapse. Yet she swore to rebuild Caddis, this time in a place where she would no longer have to pretend to obey American law. Not long after, Oliver called her. He apologized for the mistakes he had made. Juno told him there was no need to apologize, because David had manipulated them both. What mattered now was that he understood his mother truly loved him. She admitted she had failed as a parent, not being the mother he needed, and asked for his forgiveness. She promised she would come to him, though she needed time before she could reach him. Before the series closed, David, Rebecca, Yunju, and Minhee were shown dining together at a restaurant. For David, it was a moment of peace he had long been waiting for. Despite the conflicts, they could now face the truth and move forward as a family. Before leaving, Yunju excused herself to the restroom. Rebecca, feeling the same need, followed her stepmother. David, watching the two grow closer, felt a quiet sense of relief. But when neither returned, he grew concerned. He called out their names, receiving no answer. Entering the women's restroom, he found Yunju on the floor, bleeding from a stab wound to the chest. Panicked, David begged her to tell him who had attacked her. Yunju could not speak. With Rebecca nowhere to be found, David was left to fear the unthinkable that his daughter might have been responsible. So the moral of the story is, if your karaoke night suddenly turns into an international spy thriller with assassins, poison phones, fake passports, and secret families, maybe it's time to just stick to singing ballads.